An NVA sniper lies in a hide above a Vietnamese landing zone, watching Huey come in. The right cabin door is wide open. The door gunner is exposed from the knees up, leaning into the slipstream, one hand on the spade grips of his M60, the other on the ammunition feed, his face uncovered, his chicken plate the only thing between him and the rifle in the sniper's hands. The range is 200 meters. The shot is there. The sniper does not take it. By the second year of the Air Mobile War, the word had gone out among NVA and Viet Cong main force units operating against American helicopter operations. Do not fire on the door gunner of an inbound slick. Do not fire on the door gun of a gunship. Do not fire on a Huey from concealment when the lift is coming in over you. Hold. Stay down. Let the helicopters pass. Because the moment you pull the trigger, you have just told 8 or 10 door gunners and 2 orbiting gunships exactly where you are, and the next 90 seconds of your life will not end well. The most exposed crewman in the entire United States Army, the teenage door gunner hanging in the open cabin door of a Huey at 500 feet, had become the man enemy snipers were forbidden to shoot at, not because killing him would not have been easy. It would have been easy. The order existed because killing him was a death sentence for the man who pulled the trigger. If you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. This is why. In 1965, the United States Army went to war in Vietnam with a doctrine no army had ever tried at this scale. The plan was to move infantry by helicopter, 8 to 10 Huey transports at a time, into clearings hacked out of the jungle, with 2 or 3 gunships flying escort, putting a rifle company on the ground in country no road could reach. The 1st Cavalry Division, Air Mobile, was built around this idea. By 1967, every American maneuver division in Vietnam was using some version of it. The trouble with the doctrine was that it gave the enemy a stationary target for 30 seconds at a time, a UH. One Huey on final approach to a landing zone slowed to 40 knots and dropped to 50 feet above the trees. It hovered for as long as it took to get the troops out. Then it pulled pitch and clawed back into the sky. Rotors loaded, doors wide open, climbing to the worst of the rifle and machine gun range that ringed every LZ in country. The only thing the helicopter could do back was the M67.62 millimeters machine gun in each cabin door, manned by a teenage door gunner. The M60 was officially called the M60D when mounted in a helicopter and unofficially called the pig by the men who fired it, a long, heavy belt-fed weapon, 550 to 650 rounds per minute, mounted on a pintle in the door so the gunner could swing it through about a 180-degree arc on the side of the aircraft, or hung from a bungee cord overhead, so he could free-aim it down into the trees. As the slick came in, that gun, and the gun in the opposite door manned by the crew chief, were the slick's only way of fighting back. They suppressed. They put a wall of tracer into the tree line, so the enemy hidden in could not stand up to aim. The door gunners on the second slick, in line, did the same thing for the slicks behind them. The door gunners on the third did it for the fourth. The door gunners on the gunships flying racetrack patterns to either side of the formation did it for everyone. And every M60 in the formation was watching the same tree line for one thing. Muzzle flash. A door gunner could not see an enemy soldier hidden in the jungle below him. The triple canopy of Vietnamese forest swallowed everything. What he could see, what he was trained to see, was a wink of light when a rifle or a machine gun opened up at his aircraft. The flash gave the shooter's position to every gun in the air at once. Half a second later, 4 or 6 or 8 M60s pivoted onto that spot in the trees, and the tracers from all of them converged at the same point in the leaves. Then the gunships rolled in. The AH-1 Cobras and the UH-1C gunships flying escort were carrying 2.75-inch rockets, sometimes 76 of them, 40-millimeter grenade launchers, and General Electric miniguns putting 6,000 rounds a minute into a soccer field-sized patch of ground. The gunship pilots did not always wait for a radio call to roll in. The good ones watched the slick's door gunners. The moment the tracers from 2 door gunners converged on the same point in the trees, the gunship was already starting its run. The man who pulled the trigger on the door gunner had perhaps 30 seconds to live. The NVA and Viet Cong learned this calculus the way they learned everything else in the war, by losing men to it until the lesson was permanent. Their doctrine called for tactical lessons to be discussed in formal sessions after every engagement, criticism and self-criticism, with the lessons written down and circulated to other units. The lesson from the landing zone fights of 1965 and 1966 was simple. Firing at an inbound American helicopter, especially at the door gunner who was the most visible part of it, was a way of getting your squad killed in under a minute. The order that came down to their formations was, in effect, a fire discipline rule. Hold your shot. Let the lift pass. Engage only on order. Only against the troops once they were out and walking. Only from positions you could leave quickly. Above all, do not fire at the door gunner. He sees the muzzle flash. He marks it. He calls in the gunships. The American air cavalry crews learned the result of that order from the other side. Lifts that should have been hot, LZs came in unmolested. Slicks that should have taken fire on short final touched down quiet. Door gunners squinting into the tree line for the wink of a muzzle flash saw nothing for hours at a time, even when they knew the enemy was there. Pacification operations through 1968 and 1969 produced repeated stories of scout teams unable to get the enemy to shoot at them even when they hovered low over known concentrations. What the door gunners did when they did get shot at told the rest of the story. The M60 in the door of a Huey at 500 feet was the most dangerous machine gun position a man could occupy in Vietnam, in the sense that the man on the gun was unarmored from the knees down and from the chest up, sitting on a thin aluminum cabin floor that bullets came up through, with rotors above him and an open door beside him. The only thing protecting his torso was a 23-pound ceramic chicken plate strapped across his chest and back. From 1965 to 1973, 2,074 American helicopter crew members were killed in Vietnam, more than the helicopter pilots, and most of them were door gunners. The man on the gun was almost always the most junior crewman on board, specialist fourth class, private first class, sometimes 19 years old, a man who had volunteered for the door because the alternative was 12 months in the bush, or a man who had been pulled out of an aviation maintenance hangar because a Huey needed a body on the right side. His training was 2 weeks. The training of his weapon was 4 shells of every 5 regular ball, every 5th round a tracer. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. What he did when the air went red was simple. He fired. He walked the tracers into the muzzle flash he had just seen in the trees. He fired until the barrel glowed red, and then he kept firing, because slipstream cooling kept the barrel from melting at the rate the ground M60 did, and because every second that he held the trigger down was a second the enemy below could not aim back. The official load was 1,000 rounds. Every line aircraft in Vietnam carried at least double that, hidden under seats, stacked beside the gun, scrounged from anywhere. The door gunner's other job was marking targets for the people behind him. When his tracer stream hit something he wanted destroyed, the gunship pilot following the lift saw it, lined up on the same line of fire, and put rockets and miniguns into the same patch of trees. The door gunner was a spotter and the suppressor at the same time, and the gunships orbiting his slick were the executioners. Captain Hugh Nelson of the 114th Aviation Company crash-landed his Huey near Mach Hoa on the 5th of June, 1966, after his flight controls were destroyed by ground fire. He regained consciousness, found his crew chief trapped in the wreckage, freed the man, then climbed back into the burning helicopter to reach his door gunner, who was strapped into his seat and could not move. North Vietnamese soldiers were firing at the wreck from about 30 feet away. Nelson was hit multiple times, pulling the door gunner free. He dragged the man clear, covered him with his own body, and was killed by further rounds. His door gunner survived. Nelson's Medal of Honor was awarded in January 2025, almost 60 years after he died. The story was unusual only in its outcome. The protective relationship between the pilot in his armored seat and the door gunner with no armor at all was the thing that kept slick crews together. The door gunner's job was to keep them all alive. The crew's job, when it came to it, was to keep him alive. The clearest picture of what that meant is the Battle of Ia Drang in November 1965. Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore's 1st Battalion, 7th Cavalry was lifted into landing zone X-ray by Major Bruce Crandall's 16 ship lift from the 229th Assault Helicopter Battalion. The first 4 lifts went in clean. By the 5th, NVA mortars and machine guns had ranged the clearing. 3 soldiers were killed on Crandall's own ship before they could get out the door. The medevac helicopters refused to come in. Their rules required the LZ to be quiet for 5 minutes before they would commit. The LZ at X-ray had not been quiet for 5 seconds and hours. Crandall and Captain Ed Freeman flew back anyway. 22 trips over 16 continuous hours. Ammunition and water in, wounded out. 70 men carried alive off X-ray on aircraft whose cabin floors were ankle-deep in blood by sundown. Both pilots later received the Medal of Honor for those sorties. Both have their names in every account of the battle. The door gunners who were in their right-hand cabin doors for all 22 of those trips are unnamed in every published account of IA Drang. They were the men actually firing the M60S into the tree line on every approach. The men keeping the NVA gunners' heads down through the seconds when the slick was hovering and the wounded were being loaded. They are unnamed because that was the deal. The pilot's name went on the citation. The door gunner's name went, if anywhere, on a casualty list, and very often nowhere at all. There was a tactical thread the NVA and Viet Cong commanders kept running into through the war, the same one that ran through their attempts to take down the OH-6 Loach Scout helicopters and the AC-130 Spectres, and the fire bases ringed by Quad 50s and Beehive rounds. The American war machine had built layers of fire that punished any exposed enemy shot in a way that was not in proportion to the kill the enemy might get out of taking it. One sniper might kill one door gunner. The reply would be a minigun pass and a salvo of rockets that killed his entire squad. The math was always against the man with the rifle. By 1972, 2 things had begun to break the math. The Easter offensive saw the NVA deploy the Soviet Seven Grail, a shoulder-launched heat-seeking missile that could destroy Huey before the door gunner ever saw a muzzle flash to fire back at. And during Operation Lamson 719 in 1971, the air war over the Laotian border concentrated 108 American helicopters destroyed and 600 damaged in 2 months, with 55 air crewmen killed. The fire discipline that held in 1968 was being replaced by something deadlier than the rifle in the sniper's hands, a missile that did not need to see a muzzle flash because it tracked an engine. Until then, though, the rule held. The door gunner hanging in the open door in an American helicopter, the most exposed man in the air over Vietnam, was a man enemy snipers were forbidden to shoot at. The order existed for the same reason the order existed for the Loach. The shot was always there. The shot was always free. The shot would always cost more than it would gain. An NVA platoon commander, watching a flight of American Hueys coming over his position in 1968, had a choice to make. He could let them pass. The door gunner in the right-hand door of the lead slick was visible from the chest up, 20 years old. No armor on his arms or his face. The muzzle of the M60 swinging across the tree line looking for him. A single rifle round at 200 meters would have killed the boy on the gun. The platoon commander could see exactly how to do it. He had been told not to. The math behind the order was the one his army had learned in the bunkers below Key Sand, in the assembly areas hit by B-52s, in the riverbeds where Spectres found his trucks. The Americans had built a war in which any exposed shot at an exposed target was paid back 10-fold, 20-fold, by a layered system of fire the enemy could not see until it was on him. The American door gunner was the bait. The American gunship was the hook. And the man on the gun, the teenager hanging in the slipstream with his hands on the spade grips, the most expendable man on the aircraft on paper, was the safest man in Vietnam from a bullet that should have killed him, because his army had made certain that the man who tried it would not live to fire it twice. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.